Sir. Yes, sir. We are live on YouTube on the scene, back again with some familiar faces, but we are in a new place. We are in a new section of the umbrella of the scene network. We are on Stoppage Time FC, the football part of the scene. We got a great show for you guys. It's just going to be an introduction to our soccer group, a little basic soccer talk. Obviously, we're going to get into Messi and some of the transfers and some of the nuances of the transfers. But before we get into any of that, we got to introduce the crew. We'll start off. We got Zach, we got Big Shot, and we got Germ. Zach, say what's up to the people. We'll kick it to Ron and Germ after that.
You saw me the other day. We were spitting some baseball. Now we're in my wheelhouse, and we're gonna talk soccer. And I got some exciting things for you. I'm real excited to expand this and hopefully educate some new minds and bring some already familiar faces into the fold.
Big Shot.
Yeah, this is definitely. I'm with Zach. Obviously, y'all have seen me on 94 Feet of Light, but truth be told, soccer or European football, however you want to call it, actually is my second favorite sport, and it's not that far away from basketball, to be honest. So I'm looking forward to it. This is gonna be real casual, just sort of an introduction to how we roll. We're gonna get into the heavier stuff later on, but this is just kind of the first taste. So I'm glad to be on. Thanks for having me. Let's get it, fellas.
And last but not least, just recently came off the plane from Brazil, working on getting his legal documents and whatnot. He is doing the salsa. Gernaldo, say what's up to the people.
Ay. No, I don't know what to say. Hey, no, but look, hey, y'all, I'm just here to kick it, talk some football, learn a little football, and honestly, man, we just here to expand and continue to show y'all the depth of this group, this core group, especially that we have. Hey, man, so let's kick it. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I mean, listen, soccer. I think soccer is the beautiful game because it's a simple game. There is some sophistication involved, obviously, but there's a lot of strategy involved. It's a lot more physical than people may think it is. And what we want to do here, the reason, especially that Germ is on here, is really we want to show y'all that we have a real lab culture on the scene. We got Germ is the master in football. He's working on his master's in basketball. He just started his master's in baseball. So now we're getting him to get his associates in soccer. Yeah. And he's a student of the game tonight, and we're gonna get him going. Let's start it off. Zach, we're gonna start off with you first. Yes, we're hearing all kind of rumors about Messi. It's gotten messy with Messi between Barca, La Liga, and Manchester City, obviously. Let's just start off. What have you been hearing? What do you think is going to happen with Lionel Messi here with Barcelona?
Yeah, truthfully, man, that's the best way to describe it. It's messy. We're hearing all sorts of things. You know, Messi out of the blue says, "I'm done here. I don't want to be a part of this culture anymore. I've been here since I was a boy, you know, and I'm through with it. We're not winning. We're not doing the things that we need to do as a team, and so I want to take my talents to Manchester City," is basically what he's saying. And the problem is Barcelona doesn't want to let him go. And there's a lot of nuances, like you said, in his contract that are holding things up. And we're going to get into this when we kind of touch on transfers and loans. And that's basically, for those of you that don't know, that's basically how players move from team to team. There's no real free agency. And there's not really trading per se. So the way they work is it's called transfers, where you transfer from one team to another, or you can be loaned from your parent organization. So Messi right now, according to Barcelona, he has a release clause. If he wants to be let out of his current contract, the team that wants him has to pay Barcelona 700 million euros. 700 million just to negotiate with the man so he can take his talents to a new team. And Messi, being that he's been there for eons, he agreed in his latest contract. I think it was either 16 or 18 when he I think it might have been 16 when he renewed his contract. He negotiated essentially if he decided before the season was over that he wanted out, they would let him out scot-free, no release clause, because of everything he's done for the organization. Well, Barcelona's kind of like, well, you know, I know we said that, but we want our money because this is going to cripple our organization.
Well,
and it's messy.
I just want to clarify something real quick. So the date they gave Messi was June 10th, right? Now, under normal circumstances, and as we know, 2020 has been anything but normal. Under normal circumstances, June 10th would be coming after the end of the season. So now they're in this dispute. It might end up in court, but Messi's team is trying to argue that because of the pandemic, they felt that Barcelona would the intentions of the June 10th date is the end of the season and not the actual literal verbiage of you have to give us an answer by June 10th. So if you know the basics of law, the basics of how the court works, the basic of how trials work and proven without a reasonable doubt or any of that whatever it is, right? That's what's going to be the main principle of the argument, that Messi's arguing intent was end of the season, not literally June 10th, whereas Barca and obviously La Liga is siding with Barca, saying, nah, we told you June 10th. So that's where it's gonna. Now you could say, well, what happens if Messi just decides to go sign with Manchester City? What's gonna end up happening there? Well, what's gonna end up happening there is that Barca will sue Messi, and he will have to pay them 700 million euros. And on top of that, Messi could get banned, and Manchester City could get banned from dealing with any sort of tradings or dealings for the next 2 years. So, Big Shot, we're going to get you in here on this. How do you see this all playing out? What's your thoughts on Messi and Barcelona?
I think they're gonna come to some meeting. I think this is a lot of posturing on both sides, right? Mm-hmm. I think if you're La Liga, for Barcelona, and for La Liga itself, you cannot afford to have arguably the biggest star in sports walk for free.
Essentially, almost 2 years in a row.
Right. And you talk, and Zach just hit on the point. Cristiano Ronaldo left last season. If Messi walks this year, you've essentially lost the two biggest stars in sport 2 years in a row. That's crippling to a league. So I think if you're Barcelona, La Liga, you're like, you're going to have to pay me. And I think eventually all the goodwill and all that Messi's done, Barcelona's going to get their money from somebody. Mm-hmm. Whether it be Man City, who says, all right, skip it, we'll pay the 700 M's, or however it works out, Barcelona's going to get their money out of this. Because I think it's just too damaging for them not to. Like any transfer, and Zach knows this, it's going to be prolonged. I think there will not be a quick solution to this. I think we'll get into October. I think the new transfer deadline, which we can talk about, I think is like October 5th. I think we could be sitting here a month from today like, yep, 48 hours left on the clock. What's going to happen? I think they're going to drag this to the very end because for La Liga and Barcelona, it's just too damaging to let this go for nothing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it would be like if the NFL had a serious competitor, and in 2010 Peyton Manning left, and in 2011 Tom Brady left, or vice versa. You know, it'd be something of that major significance. You know, or if LeBron and left, and then KD left to go to the NBA's competitors. It's a different dynamic. Go ahead, Jerm.
We see, but when we see culture changing athletes at any sport leave a team, there is a trickle down effect. Seriously. It doesn't matter what happened. It doesn't matter when Mike left the Bulls the first time in the 90s. It was a trickle down effect. Yeah, they were still successful, but they weren't the same Bulls team. And Big Shot, we talk about things like that all the time in '94. It's just certain players, bro. They leave, like when LeBron left in Cleveland. After those 2 years, it was the same thing. It was just a big turnover after that. So if you got an opportunity and you're gonna let two players like this in 2 consecutive seasons, That's equivalent to the Heat when they had LeBron and Wade to lose LeBron and Wade in consecutive off seasons. Which didn't something like that similar happen though, Steel?
Right. But the difference being is that they're not LeBron and Wade are still in the NBA.
Right.
You talking about an entire league that's kind of tipping on the scales if they lose the two biggest stars 2 years in a row. This has
and here's the big tipping
ramifications.
point that my boy Diego, and hopefully we'll get him on here, at some point. He's a little Liga guy, but he basically said not only are they going to transfer leagues, they're going to transfer countries. So now, then this is why La Liga is taking such a hard stance on backing up Barcelona and saying that you got to pay this money, because now you're taking Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo, who left, I think it was 2 years ago now,
2 years ago.
was the highest paid person in Spain. Period. He made the most money in Spain, period.
Wow.
And he left. And now Messi, who is now the highest paid person in Spain, is going to go. So now you're losing out on tax money from the two richest people in the country.
Man,
Yeah.
This is why we wanted to get into these football conversations, because it really is as simple as this game is. Off the field, it is excuse my language, YouTube, a shit show, because there's a lot of ramifications, and there is a ton of money involved in exchange. I said this on the baseball show when in the pre-production meeting. If Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo wake up tomorrow and they have Patrick Mahomes' contract, which is the richest contract in American sports history, if they wake up tomorrow and said, this is your contract, they would retire, because they would not pay for such minimum wage. And we're talking about a $500,000 contract, And then I think we talk about the money involved from Man City. Let's focus on Man City for a second, fellas.
Yep.
We're going to say, well, how can they afford this? Well, there's a lot of ways they can afford this, but I'm going to lay out some basic numbers, and then we're going to kick it to Zach, and then he's going to kick it to Big Shot. And Jerem obviously can jump in whenever he wants to. Jerem is our center defensive midfielder for the show. So let's say the Messi transfer fee cost 100 million euros, which is unlikely that it's going to be that low. But if it costs,
I think that's where it's going to hit. I think when it's all said and done, I think 100 is going to be the number.
I have a different number, and I'm gonna get to that. Go ahead, Big Shot.
Which if it's 100, that's dirt cheap.
Yes, that is dirt cheap.
Dirt cheap. But go ahead.
Well, because why is dirt cheap is because, and we'll get to this a little later when it comes to criteria of how things are calculated. But the top defender, his transfer fee at most would be 110 million. The transfer fee for a top striker, a top attacker, is at least 110 million. So if you get Messi for 100 million, you basically that's giving him away for a 6th-round pick in soccer terms. You know what I'm saying? Now there's another number in there, and that's the 150 million. So if it's 100 million or 150 million, it'll cost Man City anywhere between 80 to 90 million a year to have Messi. If it's 300 million euros, which is the number that I think is going to be, because I think the initial clause in his buyout, in his contract a few years ago, was around 300 million. Neymar, I believe, set the record with 222 or 248, one of those.
Yep.
And so I think Messi, 300 million is a fair buyout clause for him. And that would cost Man City 120 million euros to have him on the roster. So if you look at it, the difference between a 150 million transfer fee and a 300 million transfer fee would only cost them in total 30 million euros more. So I can see them doing the 300 million fee. The actual fee that they're asking for right now at 635 million will cost Man City about 200 million a year to have Messi on their roster. So those are
which even at, I think Messi's 36.
He's
now.
33, isn't he?
Okay, well, regardless, he's in his mid 30s,
right?
Which is past prime.
Yes.
I mean, Now, Messi does not apply to this logic, but for most players, that's past prime. At 33 or 36 or whatever he is, 200 million a year is still cheap because he will generate that in TV sponsorships, in revenues, in regular sponsorships, in kit sales.
Right.
Kits or jerseys in soccer, sorry. So in jersey sales and other memorabilia, he'll manufacture that back for City. The reason I said I think it's going to be 100 mil is because I think that is the talked about number right now. I think it's the logical one because when it's all said and done, I imagine Barcelona is going to get the 100 million, and I actually think they're going to get a couple players as well. So I think that'll help offset. Barcelona may want 150 to 200 M's. What I think will happen is they'll probably get 100 of it in cash, and then they'll probably get a couple younger players that will help balance those sheets out for them.
Big shot.
I think whatever the number is, if you are Barcelona, you have to go there with a ski mask and a gun.
Yeah.
Because whether it's if it is 100, if Zach, let's go with Zach's number, it's 100, then yes, I need Gabriel Jesus. Yes, I need Rodri. There's just a couple of men players. I need 3 or 4 of your best players.
Mm-hmm.
You're not gonna give me young player in the reserves, and no. I need the 100 M's, and I need at least 3 or 4 of your starters, which would be a more American style transaction.
Which is very uncommon.
Which to Zach's point is very uncommon. But if it's only 100 M's, yeah, I'm gonna need. There's a couple people on your roster that's gonna have to move.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I hope they like Spain.
Facts. I mean, to me, the only people I'm not moving if I'm Man City for Messi is Aguero and De Bruyne. I'm gonna need those two guys to get him acclimated, to flow with him. You got Aguero, obviously the familiarity with playing on the national team in Argentina, and then you got De Bruyne, who to me, and in terms of midfielders, especially in Europe, one of the smartest, one of the best when it comes to shooting, range, build up of play, understanding when to come back, when to move forward. You could talk about Toni Kroos and Luka Modric from Real. But I think De Bruyne is in that same conversation with all those guys.
Easily.
Yeah, for sure. Just to talk about some things now. So let's say it is that 100 million. The reason that's dirt cheap is look at Cristiano Ronaldo, what he did for Juventus. In I think match day means ticket sales on just. I think that's what that means. So just in ticket sales, sponsors, and products, he generated an extra 52.4 million euros for Juventus. That's a big thing. And then in soccer, there's also something called the Star Clause, which is I think Puma is Manchester City's kit manufacturer, their uniform sponsors. So if they have a star player clause, and Messi would fit under that star player clause, Puma would pay Man City more money. And then you also talk about the sponsors. Man City has 43 sponsors from regional and global. They got 43 sponsors. They get Messi. Each one of those sponsors would add $1 million in revenue. So that's 43 million, million euros. That's 43 million euros. So right there, we're looking at the 100 million that is going to cost them. And that's just the basics of revenue.
Right.
Which is why I think it's going to be more towards the 300 million, just because, like you said, having those players traded would be such an American type transaction.
The contract's going to be interesting, and I think that the only reason I think Messi might be in trouble is for the simple fact is if you look at, and I'll use this because it's relevant because it's my team, Chelsea. Chelsea had 2 players who were their contracts were ending this year. Willian, a Brazilian winger who went to Arsenal, and Pedro, who came from Barcelona, and now he's playing for Roma. They were set to be free agents. Chelsea were not renewing their contract. They had to sign extensions on their contract to finish the season for Chelsea in the Premier League because their contract was dated at the end of the original Premier League season. Because the season got extended because of COVID, they had to sign extensions. Messi did not sign, under my understanding, did not sign an extension, which would in turn extend his free get out of jail free card essentially in his clause. So I think that might be a really big sticking point for Barca. Hey, you didn't negotiate this to extend. That's not my problem. Pay me my money.
I just Big Shot, just a quick question for you on the Barcelona side. At what point? I mean, you said for Man City, they're going to wait till the 25th hour. You know what I mean? They're not going to just give up on trying to get Lionel Messi, especially when they know he wants to come to them. But at what point does Barca say, okay, we're either not doing this or we are doing this? Is there are they going to also just wait it out?
I think if you're Barcelona, you have to drag, to the best of your ability, you have to drag this out.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you forget what Messi's done for the club, and obviously he's done unbelievable. This becomes a pure business decision.
Yep.
At this point.
Mm-hmm.
And is it in your best interest to say, yeah, okay, well, here's the 100?
Mm-hmm.
No. Your interest is we need all 700 M's or we need something in that ballpark of 300 and
plus
maybe, and football transfers can get real complicated in terms. But if you're Barcelona, you just can't say on September 3rd, okay, we'll take the 100 M's and we'll be done. You have to see this out. And I think that's why, and since they have the backing of the league,
exactly,
the league will say, no, you're going to drag this out. So even if Man City could come up on the ticker tonight and say, hey, here's 300 M, Barcelona tonight. The league will probably tell Barcelona, no, you're going to hold off until we tell you what is a sufficient deal for our greatest player. So I think both sides have a motivation to make this go as long as they go. Man City, maybe you can break them down after a while when it gets desperate. If you're Barcelona, you say, hey, we got the league behind us. We aren't going to move until we absolutely have to. And right now, nobody has to move anywhere.
Nope.
And see, that's the thing. Barca has all the leverage.
Exactly.
Because it's not like Messi is out of contract.
No.
He's still under contract until next year.
Right.
The only thing that is going to be, a fire for Barca is that if you drag your feet and basically tell Messi, homie, kick rocks, I'm sorry, you're going to see out your contract. Well, then Messi's not going to agree, and come next summer when he is a free agent, you're going to lose him for free. Right. So, is it one of those situations where, yeah, it's going to suck. You suck it up and get what you can for him now, or do you hope that some sort of reconciliation can be made and you guys agree on a reasonable fee? For me though, like this is tough because I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna get a lot of looks. I know. I don't know if Messi makes Man City that much better. Now, Messi is Messi. There's no denying that. You put Messi on any team, and they're obviously going to be a better organization. They're going to be a better team. They're going to compete for the Champions League. That's not the issue. The problem is Man City's already doing that. They're already competing for the Premier League. They're already competing for the Champions League. Now, they don't have anybody right now that is, they have Aguero, Riyad Mahrez, and Raheem Sterling up there, occupying those wings. Sterling is an England god. Like they love him there. He's not leaving. Riyad Mahrez is an Algerian guy who is the star of his national team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you lose Mahrez to the bench. At what point does that hinder you more than it helps you? Are you, and this is, we kind of talked about this in the dish. For me, the Padres were going all in on Clevenger, and they're saying, here, take 92 people so we can have Clevenger for 2 years. At what point is mortgaging the farm worse than what you can get, and that for me is why I say that I don't know if Messi to Man City makes Man City that much better in the long run anyway.
Well, I think you hit on it in the long run. What exactly would it do for them? But Big Shot, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, I think what it does is let's say this all gets worked out and he ends up in Man City. Essentially, you are telling Pep Guardiola, the thing we brought you in here to do in the first place, you better do it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't bring, Man City was winning league titles before Pep Guardiola got there. You were brought in here to win the Champions League. You weren't brought in here to win the Premier League 3 or 4 or 5 more times. To me, you bring in Messi, in a way, the clock starts on Pep Guardiola in Man City at that point. If you do not win this Champions League next year, you, sir, might be looking for another employer. You are only bringing Messi in here to win the Champions League.
Well,
Man City could have Messi and finish 30 points behind Liverpool next year. The whole point of this is to win a Champions League. It's not to do anything else but that. So to Zach's point, you are in a way sacrificing your long term because of this one trophy, this one thing that we want to win, win anything.
And just go ahead, Zach.
Oh, so, and this is going to go, we were going to talk about this a little bit later, is Man City is already having problems with money and UEFA. There's this thing in soccer called financial fair play.
Yep.
And this is not going to help them, because so if it's Messi's contract that we're talking about, right? So the proposed contract's 5 years contract, 3 of which is at Man City. The following 2 years, he goes to New York City FC in the MLS, which is owned by the same Saudi Dubai group that owns New York City FC. So they own both organizations. So you're basically saying, hey, this is 3 years. If we don't win the Champions League the next 3 years, it doesn't, to me, that doesn't help them.
So we talk about the financial fair play. Essentially what that is for German and people at home, there's no salary cap in soccer, right? What the financial fair play is it essentially sets a budget, whereas you can't spend exponentially more than what you bring in, right? And so your budget has to be somewhere in there. And that's because if it wasn't like that, you'd have the Yankees who win 26 World Championships. You know what I mean? You would have Barcelona and Real who would just have anybody they wanted. And so this is a way to kind of keep the playing field leveled. And this leads us perfectly to our next topic, which is, so Big Shot brought up the Champions League. The Champions League, again, is we don't want to say it's like the Super Bowl, because winning your league is significant, but it's basically a glorified division title, winning your league. Winning the Champions League is the pride, because you get the best football clubs in all of Europe going after one trophy. And it's you got the best players in the world, from Brazil, Argentina, America. In Pulisic's case, hopefully we get more American players playing on some major European clubs. Germany, Italy, France, you get all these great players who you only see on the World Cup every 4 years play in the same tournament. Well, now every year, if you start watching club football, you should start watching club football, because it's a lot more exciting than international play. It's the big one. So what exactly happened with Man City and their possible ban from the Champions League?
So this is a really tricky situation because Man City, this whole thing started in 2014. This goes all the way back to 2014. And basically, as Mo was saying, you got to keep your balance sheet even. You can't have more than $5 million in profits, or £5 million, whatever they want to call it. And you can only sustain 45 million in losses a year without trying to balance the books. So, and the problem is, when teams buy all these players, they go into debt because they got to pay the transfer fees, they got to pay their weekly wages, which are sometimes, insane. An average player, that is not of a star caliber still makes probably roughly about £100,000 a week. That's £400,000 a month per player. So yeah, and Jared, like, it's money. Like, there is an insane amount of money in football. And so this, UEFA went after Man City because they had sustained losses in 2014 and 2015, I do believe, that totaled over 100 million.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what they said, okay, well, pay this fine and try to fix your situation and it'll all go away. We fast forward a couple of years, and just like WikiLeaks, there was this document that came out called Football Leaks. And it basically came out against Man City, stating that Man City's sponsor, their big sponsor. So you see on NBA jerseys how they have sponsors on their jerseys. Well, soccer, that's a huge thing.
Right.
On the front of their jersey is a very large, prominent sponsor who pays an obscene amount of money to be broadcasted on the front of their jerseys. For Man City, it's Etihad Airways. So, the Dubai plane company, they're their sponsor. The big thing was saying, hey, Etihad is now, mind you, Etihad also sponsors Man City Stadium. So they're basically were saying that Etihad is I don't know if it was 45 or 85 or whatever it was million a year to have those naming rights and to be put all over that. But what the Court of Arbitration in Sports had said and found out was that Etihad was paying Man City this money and then funneling it back into the club,
Right.
basically cooking the books. And so it was essentially a money laundering operation, and it was just nuts. So that came out, and the Court of Arbitration of Sports was like, hey, okay, enough's enough. So they banned them from European football for 2 years. So what that did is it made Man City basically ineligible for the Champions League for 2 years, which the amount of revenue you generate from just being in the Champions League is insane.
Right.
And it's nothing. It's pocket change to teams like Man United and Liverpool and Barca and Chelsea and those caliber of teams. But when you have a team that's in like Bulgaria or Russia and they qualify for the Champions League, and that just qualifying for the Champions League gets them, a cool 50 M's, that's life altering for an organization. So even so, with that being said, you get axed from European competitions for 2 years. That's going to hurt the balance budget a lot.
No, I mean, Big Shot, anything you want to add to that?
No, and yeah, everything that Zach says is true, which is why when that ban got overturned, it was a big thing. I think it wasn't that, it wasn't a highly reported story necessarily, but I think them getting the ban removed changes how you plan in offseason. Because if that ban sticks, half your team could say, you know what, I'm out of here.
Right.
Including someone like a De Bruyne, someone like a Raheem Sterling. So even guys who have been mainstays in your franchise, like, yo, I'm not sticking around here for 2 years and no European football. That's dead.
Right.
So that ban getting overturned mysteriously was underreported, but it was major because I think it changed. You're in the Messi conversation
Because of that.
Because of this.
Right.
You keep Guardiola because of this.
Right.
So that ban getting lifted was major.
Mm-hmm.
Major for Man City, because that is a club altering ban if it sticks. Indeed. It can change a whole lot of things for you.
Indeed.
And I haven't heard of any stars that actually have this clause, but I know in cases of, so all right, to put this into perspective for the non-soccer followers, all sports franchises in Europe have relegation. So if you finish in the bottom tier of your league, you get sent to like a secondary league, and you got to fight your way back up to the top league. Well, in some cases, if a star player goes to a team that might be fighting relegation, they have a clause to basically let them out of their contract. I don't know of any stars that have a Champions League clause, saying, hey, if we don't make the Champions League, deuces, I'm out. But it is something that's very interesting. It makes players disgruntled very, very quickly. It's the reason that you see players not go to teams because they don't qualify for the Champions League. Because not only, just to talk on transfers, we'll look at Chelsea. They're going to be signing most likely Kai Havertz, the 21-year-old German midfielder. He's an upcoming star. Chelsea has to pay Bayern Leverkusen, his team in Germany. It's going to be roughly about 90 million euros just to negotiate with him. So then they have to come to the agreement with Havertz, who's going to make £310,000 a week.
Man.
So he's going to make that. If Chelsea doesn't make the Champions League,
can't afford them.
It doesn't matter how much they're gonna. It doesn't matter how much they're gonna pay Leverkusen. They can pay 195, but Havertz can be like, well, tough luck. I don't want to play for a team that isn't in the Champions League, and he doesn't have to agree. And then that deal falls through.
Germany, anything you want? Yeah.
So do soccer players just essentially just have Brinks trucks just to deliver to them every week?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
So here's a good question. Here's a good question for people listening, because I think this is an interesting thing that you guys can talk about in general. You guys talked about the champion series of Champion League being basically the year-to-year kind of proverbial, big thing. Is the World Cup kind of like the biggest and the highest honor that they can win?
Oh yeah.
And the World Cup happens how often again?
Every 4 years.
Every 4 years.
So every 4 years, so basically we're trying to win every year, but every fourth year is when it really matters.
Well, the World Cup is the national team. So right now Messi, right? He plays in Spain, but he's from Argentina. Mm-hmm. So in the World Cup, he's going to play for the Argentina team. And the reason the World Cup is every 4 years is not for show. Is not to say, hey, it's every 4 years. It takes 3 years to organize the damn thing. And then once you get the qualifiers, it takes a whole year to figure out how everybody's going to get there. So so when the World Cup ends, the qualifiers start like 3 years before the next one. And teams go through players they got to develop. Because sometimes you get 17-year-old players that you need to see what they got, because by the time the next World Cup comes around, they're going to be 21 years old. And that's entering your prime in soccer. Like in soccer, your prime is 21 through 28. Once you get to 29, and obviously there's exceptions, and with modern technology and modern medicine, as we're seeing athletes across all sports increase the window, increase that prime threshold, like with LeBron, like with Brady, like with Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, these guys are way past their prime, but they still look like they're in peak shape. So the World Cup, though, let's just keep it back to that, and I'm gonna pass it to Big Shot and then Zach. Think about this, Germ, right? Charles Barkley and Karl Malone, like we know what is with them. They never won that ring, right? The World Cup, there are so many great superstars that have not only never won, not even played. I'll give you two big ones. To anybody know, David Beckham, Wayne Rooney, Leo Messi, Neymar, Cristiano Ronaldo. None of those guys ever won.
Ronaldo never been either.
Listen, it's hard to get there, and it's way harder to win it. And just like there's this aim for parity, which is the biggest sham in all of sports, that you trying to sell parity in professional sports. Soccer, same thing, man. The competition's been around for over 100 years, and you probably have what, like 13 countries that have actually won the World Cup.
Yeah,
it's Big Shot. Anything you want to add to that World Cup conversation?
And with the World Cup, it's really, I mean, to really kind of dumb it down, is where you were born and who you play with. Like literally, it's basically depending on you're born in the right country at the right time. Like France is currently going through a period where they just have an obscene amount of players. Like France just has talent, unreal talent, and they'll probably be good for like another 2 World Cups. But France went through a dry spot a few years back where they weren't the greatest. So the World Cup, there are so many things, unlike with Champions League and club football, that are in your control, where it is very much have and have nots. But in the World Cup, it's training, it's infrastructure, and Zach can speak to this, which I think to me is one of the issues with it. Sometimes is how much that country care about. And if your country really, really cares about it, you have a great shot of being in the World Cup, because we just care about this a hell of a lot more than everybody else. I mean, it's more factors than that, but yeah, the Champions League is the big prize, Germ, because there are some of your greatest players who will never see a World Cup.
Right.
And that's basically just because they were born in the wrong country.
Or the wrong town.
You born in the wrong town.
It's true.
And then you have the issue of dual nationals, and that's where France is benefiting huge from dual nationals right now. Because if you look at their starting 11 from the World Cup final, I think, and don't quote me on this,
say this.
I think
no, you can
there
see
was
it.
only 3 of them that were legitimately born in France. The rest were born in Africa to French parents, so they carried dual nationality, and so they qualify for France. And because your most legitimate shot at making a World Cup is going to be with France. It's not going to be with Nigeria.
Sudan,
and this is no disrespect to those countries.
No, of course not.
No, it's the truth.
The funding and the infrastructure just isn't there.
I mean, Algeria, I don't remember who they played. I think it was in 2002. They got a tie, so they earned a point. Man, you should have seen the streets of Algeria.
Country shut down.
They had a parade because they got a point in the World Cup. You know what I mean? It's
against the powerhouse. Yep.
Was it Germany?
It was a powerhouse. I can't
remember who it was. I can't remember, because I remember that same World Cup, Germany whooped Saudi Arabia 8-0 in the opener.
Yep.
Goodness gracious. Germany they're bullies when they're ready, man. Goodness gracious.
Bro. There's a reason that the German national team is called the Machine.
And they are a machine.
What they are.
They are a machine.
Look at even from a United States standpoint, and this is so for those of you that don't know and always wonder why you don't hear about the United States winning World Cups. The United States is pretty much a really young country compared to a lot of these national teams, but and part of this goes into the fact that we also have 4 other major sports where a lot of athletes play those other sports instead of football, and that hurts as well. But that's neither here nor there. You also, like, up until Jurgen Klinsmann took over for the United States, dual nationals were shunned upon at the United States level until Jurgen Klinsmann brought in guys like Jermaine Jones, who was born in Germany to an American service member and a German mother. Like, that was never really a thing. Like, that was, well, he's German. Like, that's not, you don't try to bring him to the United States. That's not right. Christian Pulisic technically could have represented Croatia.
I
Yeah.
believe so.
I think it's
Yes.
Croatia,
Yes.
because his family's from Croatia. His father is Croatian by descent, and he carried a Croatian passport for a very long time until he became a U.S. citizen, or he was capped by the U.S. men's national team. There are a bunch of players currently that carry dual nationality, and the United States is fighting to keep them. So it's tough. It's
Because
a game.
wasn't Claudio Reyna Mexican?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
in my lifetime, the closest we ever came, and I don't even know if you guys remember this because the internet wasn't what it was then, and even though this was 2006, but that was the closest in my lifetime that I remember a star possibly playing for a different country, and that was Ronaldinho, who was actually not, I don't know if he was considering it, but there was rumors, speculation as to whether he would play for Spain over Brazil in that World Cup. And I tell you what, had he known Ronaldo would have shown up 25 pounds fatter, he probably would have played for Spain. Well, that's a different conversation for a different day.
Yeah. So what the people listen to this is what makes football. It's a beautiful sport, but behind the scenes, there are some very dodgy things that go on at all levels of this sport. Like, we here in America, oh, something is fixed, something is rigged. Trust me, what you think is rigged in our sport, in football, it's bananas. If you haven't learned anything from this conversation, you learn the business of football is dark, dodgy, and there's a lot of very suspect things that happen.
Yeah.
Love the sport. But
hell yeah.
Yeah,
Listen,
I think this is why I can't wait to see once Germ starts to get into his deep dive of some of this. Cause boy, he's about to learn some things about this sport that are unbelievably shady.
It's gonna probably turn me into aggravated Germ.
Shout out JM. Listen, I think, damn, I almost lost my train of thought there for a second. Yeah, okay. So one of these days we're gonna do a show about the corrupted, the side of soccer and some of the stories that we've heard. We're gonna call it the dark side of the pitch instead of the dark side of the moon, because there is some real shady stuff that happens. But just to keep the conversation real, lastly, before we move on to the next segment on the World Cup, what are your thoughts, fellas? Just quick thoughts about next year's, or in 2 years, because it's going to be so hot in Oman that they're going to have the World Cup actually in the wintertime instead of the usual June, July dates.
It's Qatar. It's not Oman. But
it's Qatar. My bad.
It's the same thing. It's a mess. You want to talk about corruption? The Qatar 2022 World Cup is the epitome of corruption.
Yes, it is.
And that's the reason FIFA lost step bladder is because of that corruption. But it's not only is that it the worst possible time to host that, because it messes with every single league.
Yeah.
Minus the MLS, here in the United States.
Right.
Another conversation for another day. Don't get me started on the MLS. But yeah, it literally is the worst time, at least in my opinion, to host a World Cup.
Big shot.
I I'm really surprised. I mean, I'm not gonna say surprised because when it comes to FIFA and business, nothing really is a surprise. But I just wonder how much pushback your most powerful clubs give that tournament. Because I'll be real, I am the president of Barcelona or Madrid or Paris Saint Germain, and you're telling me I gotta lose Neymar or pick whatever big star you want in the middle of my season for essentially, let's say, a month.
Huff.
I'm not really down for this.
Yeah.
And I
And
wonder if Zach, now that Blatter is gone, if the closer we don't get to this tournament, you start to hear more and more rumblings where the bigger clubs are like, hey,
so
we need to have a discussion about this whole Qatar thing.
Man.
Or the I mean, 2 years out isn't a long time, so I don't know how much you can do. But I know if I'm the head of any of these big European football clubs, oh, we need to have a meeting
Yeah.
about this because Zach said this is going to be disruptive as hell on all fronts, on the pitch, off the pitch. There, I just don't. I wonder if this doesn't happen. We get this rumbling like this time next year where they like, nah, we not really for this.
Zach, before you go, just hold that thought real quick. Big Shot, not only is 2 years not a long time, 2 years during the pandemic is like next week. Yeah, Zach.
So, and I, it's funny you mentioned this because traditionally clubs have always let their players go during international transfer,
Right.
training days. Like right now, all the players are with their national teams training, because the European competition, which happens 2 years in between the World Cup, that's happening this year.
Right.
So traditionally, clubs have always been like, yeah, go ahead, because it's only 2 weeks roughly, and then the Euros is going to be this upcoming summer. But I truthfully, Ron, like, I don't think clubs are going to let them go because the players are contractually obligated to play for that club.
Yes.
They grant them the opportunity to
Yes.
play for their national team. And when you start talking about, okay, now I'm going to lose you for a month in the middle of my season, bro, like, no, fam. Like, I appreciate your pride to your country, but the crest you wear on your chest right now for this club is the only crest you're going to be representing because you ain't going to Qatar, man.
I mean, think about if Man City pays €500,000 for Messi, they're not going to be like, yeah, go ahead. You know what I mean? Especially if they're in the middle of their battle. It's just, and again, once hopefully our guy Diego will join us one day because we really want to have an international show and talk about some of these things and mention how this whole Qatar thing came to play. But it really is a corrupted thing. But when you talk about soccer, you're talking about politics, talking about international law, and you talking about, forget billionaires, forget Jerry Jones. You're talking about royalty. You're gonna have a hard time telling royalty people what to do.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So,
and you look
I
go ahead, Jeremy.
I mean, check this out. At the end of the day, when all else fails, y'all just let me know whatever country y'all need me in. Ronaldo 2022, he's here for y'all. Just let me know. I've been running. I've been doing my sprints up and down the field. I've been practicing my crossovers. And if you just need me to just old fashioned knock people down, I got you. It's coming.
Ronaldo, just FYI, even in December when they're talking about this, the average temperature in Qatar reaches almost 100 degrees.
Yeah.
So
That's in the wintertime.
Now, mind you, an average soccer player who is not a striker or an attacking forward runs on average 9 to 13 miles a game.
Oh well, I'm working on that. I'm working on that. I'm working on it now.
No,
I've got to about 3. I got
played-
to 3. I'm gonna try to get to 25 to try to combat some of the heat. Yeah, I'll let y'all know how that works.
And the thing is those 13 miles, like by the time it gets to that 35th minute in the first half, your legs are already starting to get on fire. Yeah, man. You cannot wait for halftime. Like, give me some oranges, give me a banana, give me a watermelon, give me something.
There ain't no timeout.
Oh man.
No, there is no timeout.
There's no stopping.
No.
Barring someone breaking their leg on the pitch, there is no stopping.
Hey,
the clock doesn't stop. That's for damn sure.
The funniest part of it is, I just want to score 1 goal to retire. That's all I want to do. So I can run goal.
Like that dude in the replacements.
Right.
Hey, you just want to score 1 goal, baby.
Hey, listen.
What he say? What he say? I just want to score. That's all.
All right, so let's move on now. Get ready to wrap up the show. Let's just touch on a few things. Obviously, this show has been centered around Messi and Barca and Man City, rightfully so. We also touched on Cristiano Ronaldo, who is, in our opinion, I think everybody on this panel would just prefer him over Messi as a superior player. Again, just
sorry, Diego.
Hey, but speaking of Cristiano Ronaldo, there was also rumblings that he was unhappy in Juventus, and I think they quieted those rumblings because they are going to bring over Luis Suarez from Barcelona, a top striker still in the world.
Allegedly.
Listen, to me, Luis Suarez is one of the most dangerous players on a football field.
Yeah, because he'll eat you.
Literally and figuratively. So, Zach, and then Big Shot, give me your thoughts on Suarez to Juventus, what this does for Juventus, what this possibly means for Barcelona, and could this possibly put Juventus over the hump and get him that Champions League title?
Shout out to Juventus, because I'll tell you, they have tried every conceivable thing to win this Champions League. You talk about another team. Juventus, I think, is won the Italian League with 8 years in a row. They've won this. They sleepwalk through the Serie A and still winning. They have tried. You're right. They've tried this every conceivable combination of players to win this competition. Suarez and Ronaldo together, I think, could work, but Juventus has the most, and Zach could probably speak to this, they have the most dry midfield in the world. Like, they play with a complete lack of creativity. And if you're gonna play with this complete lack of creativity, is 33-year-old and 35-year-old Ronaldo having to do this heavy lifting really what you want to do over the course of a long season? I think if they had better creators behind them, where those dudes could literally just say, hey, we'll just run into the penalty box and you just give us the ball, it would be fine. But Juventus, they play so bland. I don't think the Suarez thing is going to work as well, because I think he's going to have to work too hard. And Ronaldo, even you watch Ronaldo now, still incredible athlete. He still has to work hard to get goals, whereas a Man City, we just score, where Bayern Munich and Man City just create stuff for fun. They just create easy goal after easy goal after easy goal. So
they're clinical.
I'm suspect on Suarez to Juventus if that midfield isn't going to be any better than what it was.
There's no change to the midfield, and that's what's most alarming for me about this transfer is, Suarez goes to Juventus, and okay, so where does that put Paulo Dybala? Because if it's me, I'd rather have Dybala up top with that speed, and
Absolutely.
he's what creates that extra room for Ronaldo. Whereas, okay, so if you move Suarez into the number 9 role, do you put Dybala as the 10 and you put him behind Suarez and make him as an attacking midfielder, or do you put him out on the left? I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And that midfield isn't any better. I mean, and then they signed Weston McKennie, who is a U.S. international young up-and-comer, which I also think is a terrible move, but that's another show for another day. Because I told Mo I'd like to do a whole show dedicated to the U.S. men's national team, and we can do it in kind of in correlation with the World Cup. But yeah, the Suarez the Juve thing is not. I'm not a fan. I don't think it helps them at all.
So I think this is going to lead me ultimately to my next question, and it's so we talk about how transfers and whatnot. What I want to get into is the loaning of players. For example, Bayern Munich right now, who just won the Champions League, is loaning Felipe Coutinho from Barcelona, the Brazilian midfielder, winger, whichever position you want to call him in. I think he can play midfield, but he's primarily a winger. Explain the loaning of players a little bit, Zach, and how exactly it works.
We'll take Coutinho because that's a really good situation.
Mm-hmm.
So Coutinho plays for Barcelona. He is a Barcelona player.
Mm-hmm.
However, Coutinho was not going to fit into the starting 11 at Barcelona. So they decided to put Coutinho out for loan. And basically what that meant was Bayern Munich in Germany said, hey, we'll take Coutinho. He fits our style. He's a good player. We don't want to buy him. We don't want him permanently, but we want him for this season. So what they did is they paid Barcelona a very small fee. It's usually like £2 or £3 million, or euros, whatever you want to call them. And then what happens is Coutinho goes and plays for Bayern Munich for the season. Bayern Munich pays the wages of Coutinho, and I think Coutinho is somewhere around the 200 to 250,000 pounds a week. So what that does is that alleviates that debt from Barcelona, and it goes on Bayern Munich's bills. But then they have the access of playing Coutinho every day, and Coutinho, and I had shared this in the Stoppage Time group. Which, if you're not a follower of the Stoppage Time group, you need to, because we put a lot of good content in there. So Coutinho came from Liverpool originally. Barcelona bought him from Liverpool and then turned around and loaned him out. But Liverpool was smart and they were shrewd in their negotiating tactics. They told Barcelona, hey, if Coutinho wins the Champions League, you owe us another £1 million. Here's the caveat to that. It wasn't Coutinho winning the Champions League in Barcelona. It was if Coutinho wins the Champions League, period. So Coutinho went to Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich eliminated Bayern Munich eliminated Barca 8-2 in the semifinals of the Champions League, and then in turn won the Champions League. So Barcelona ended up having to pay Liverpool £1 million, €1 million for a player that they wanted to get off their wage bill. So they ended up not really saving a whole lot.
Yeah.
That's
And
like
then
strong arm right there.
And then he scored twice in that game.
Yup.
Just as the insult to the injury.
Yep.
After they were up 6-2.
Yes.
He scored 2 goals and they were already up 6-2.
So y'all
he buried
basically
those
paid
too.
this man to beat you to come in and continue to beat.
Oh man.
Yo, it's and I think that's one of the cool things about the sport, that we talk about all the dodgy stuff in the engine, but the concept of transfers and loans is a really interesting concept.
Indeed.
And I think for Germ and Ham and our people who are new to this, it's enlightening, and so you get quirky things like this,
which could basically never happen in America. But
Yep.
in soccer, it can happen where you have a guy who doesn't. We spend all this money on this dude that we don't like. So instead of him sitting on the bench, we'll loan him to somebody. But then it comes back around, we have to play him, and he then contributes. I mean, the match was out of control by the time he got on.
Right.
But he adds a couple more jabs to this beatdown, 2 goals, and then we gotta pay his original club some more money for the beatdown that he gave us. So
that was that situation. He was like, "Yeah, and some of that."
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly what that was.
exactly what happened.
Last question, fellas, and then we'll do closing thoughts. And Zach, I'm looking for you on this one. I mean, if you know me by now, when it comes to football, if your name is Ronaldo, I got a bias towards you. Well, growing up, it was a phenomenon for me. And now it's from about 2006 up, it's been Cristiano. So is there anybody you think who could come available this year or next, like let's say Conte or David Silva or Fabinho, or I mean just any, or even a bit of a stretch, but even somebody like let's say Modric or Griezmann? Like, is there anybody you think, any midfielder who you think could go to Juventus? Anybody you think could? I mean, anybody who's on that level would fit. But is anybody who you see as a good candidate who could potentially get there?
The problem with Juve isn't the players that they have; it's the style that they play.
Okay.
And that's the Italian league as a whole. Mm-hmm. They play very methodical, and that's and this is maddening, especially coming from a Chelsea fan. Is when Maurizio Sarri came to Chelsea, he brought Sarri ball, which is this insane Italian concept where you pass it 700 times per game in these short back and forth little tiki-taka passes. Yep. With no real buildup in it. You're essentially trying to lull your team to sleep and catch them off guard. Right. That's the Italian league, and that's Juve's problem. They had some great midfielders there. Blaise Matuidi, until he just went to Inter Miami here in the MLS.
Yes.
People forget he's a World Cup winner with France.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He was at Juve, not used properly.
Nope.
They have guys like Betancourt and I'm drawing a blank on a couple others. They have Juan Cuadrado over there. They have the talent. If you plug in, we'll say a guy like N'Golo Kante. For me, and last year he had a rough year battling injuries, but to me, he is the best holding midfielder in the world.
I agree.
I know a lot of people like Casemiro from Real Madrid, yeah. and nothing against Casemiro. Nope. He's a phenomenal player. Mm-hmm. For me, N'Golo Kante does it better.
Yes.
And yeah, okay, maybe I'm a little bit biased because he plays for Chelsea, but even when he was at Leicester doesn't win the title without N'Golo Kante.
Hell no.
And that's the reason they were 5,000 to 1 odds to win the Premier League that year.
Conte, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, if you put Conte at Juve, it doesn't matter unless they change that style.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, Conte is like having that just really good point guard who can just, even when you got to get it back to the top of the key and reset everything, he's your guy. When things break down, when things need to be communicated, he's always somewhere around the action of the ball. And as much as France, when they won their World Cup, as much as Mbappe and Giroud and all those guys and Pogba, as big of a role as they played, especially their keeper even at times, Conte was the glue.
Yes.
Conte was definitely the glue. Big Shot, anything you want to add to that? I mean, they got Khedira's older, Rabiot. I don't know what I'm going to really get out of Rabiot.
Yeah, I don't know. I think until they have, as Zach touched on, a style change, I think they're going to be. It'll be very limiting. They'll probably win Serie A again because
for the next
they
96 years.
They're going to. But in the Champions League, which is what this was all about, we talk about why you bring in Messi. You brought in Cristiano to win the Champions. And the problem with Juventus is always going to be against better opposition. If the game or the match gets tight, do you have somebody who can break a game open with the pass or break a game open off the dribble? And they just, the way they play doesn't allow anybody that's not, and you're waiting on, well, can Cristiano bail us out
time
at
and
the
time?
end? And against better opposition, as we saw this year, that doesn't work. That might work against random Serie A team on a random night, but you going against the Man City, the Bayerns, the Liverpool, which is your Champions League opposition, that ain't gonna work. They've worked all that out. So I think I agree with Zach. Until there's a style change for them, Champions League is gonna be always just out of reach because it's too uncreative and it's too dry.
I got a name for you though. I just thought of something after Ron's done.
No, go ahead. You got it.
So if they do a style change, this is you got to do that. Now, mind you, this is also, they got rid of Miralem Pjanic, who was their best midfielder in my eyes, and that move always fascinated me. But all right, so if I'm Juve and I change my style up a little bit, there's one name that I would target over anybody. He's proven to play well with Ronaldo, and he's been on the outskirts of his club for a hot minute now. Any guesses?
Coutinho?
Nope.
Outskirts of his club.
You talking about the young Polish player, maybe? Another Portugal player? I forgot his name.
Nope. No, not João Felix.
Okay.
He literally just played with Ronaldo.
Bale.
Gareth Bale.
Bro, don't even tease me like that.
Gareth Bale.
Oh my God.
Gareth Bale played phenomenally on the opposite wing of Ronaldo at Real Madrid.
Beautiful
Zinedine
combination.
Zidane does not like Gareth Bale for whatever reason. And truthfully, Bale's like, okay, cool. I'll sit on the bench and collect my insanely high wages every week. I'll go golfing. Instead of, attend these team practices. And I don't know if you guys saw it. He's with Wales right now. He called Real Madrid out.
Really?
Yeah, he said, I tried to move. They're the ones putting this, they're the ones stopping me. So it's in their hands. If I'm Juve, I target Gareth Bale, because then you have Gareth Bale, you have Paulo Dybala, and you have Ronaldo up top. That will allow your midfielders more creativity to, send those long balls up to the wings and do the thing that you need to do. You need to allow Dybala the freedom to receive the ball and get into the box. You need to allow Cristiano Ronaldo to get into the box and create some of those amazing headers that we've seen him do time and time again.
And we've seen what both those guys could do on the wing in space. And even if they don't have the space, they know how to create the space. And like you said, you all of a sudden you put that triangle in there and you have Suarez trying to fit in wherever he can. It's going to expand the field so much for that team. That's a little outside the box with Bale. But when you think about it, go ahead, Big Shot.
Bale is that. That's not a name I had thought of.
Me neither.
But I get it.
Yes.
I understand why that worked. And Gareth Bale, because he's been on ice essentially for 2 years, guy has fresh legs.
You're going to get him on the cheap too.
Exactly.
So Gareth Bale. Yeah, Zach, you messed me up with that one.
Man,
I had not thought about Gareth Bale.
He do this. Look at his face. His face is telling you.
I know he
do this.
I could tell pleased at throwing me off like
he's like, I do this, y'all. This is my house.
Yep.
Hey, you know what's
Oh,
another?
boy.
And you talk about, and I mean, this is again, we don't want old people too long because we talk about the intricacies of transfers, loans, and contracts. Gareth Bale and Mesut Ozil are two of the most fascinating situations
Yep.
I have ever seen in professional sports.
Period.
Forget football,
Yeah.
just in professional sports. And this is another one. I got like a 2-page bullet points for my man Germ. I'm just gonna send him out for research purposes, but Gareth Bale and Mesut Ozil are two of the most fascinating things I think I've ever seen. Where literally you just like, I'm just not gonna play.
Premier caliber players. And the coach is just like, I'm straight.
It seriously doesn't make any sense to me. And Zidane has been getting so much praise for what he's done with Real, especially now that Ronaldo's gone. I mean, Asensio, as much as I like the player, I'm taking Gareth Bale any day of the week. I just think he's phenomenal.
Look at Vinicius Jr.
Yeah,
he's obsessed with Vinicius Jr. as well, and I don't get it.
And this shows you the thinking of these clubs. To me, purely for a financial and economical reason, wouldn't you just put Gareth Bale out there? If for nothing else, I need to put him in the window for somebody to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Even if I'm Zidane, he's not in my plans, period. To me, it just says, okay, I'm a play him so that maybe somebody bites. Maybe a Juventus bites and says, okay, he looks good. Or I just don't understand why you just completely say, I'm just not going to play.
Right.
2 years ago, Gareth Bale would have fetched over 100 million for a transfer fee.
Well, that's how much Real paid for him, right?
I'm willing to bet right now if they sold Gareth Bale, they'd be lucky to get 50.
Wow.
Yeah.
He hasn't played in 2 years. You know, any team that takes him on is essentially taking a flyer on him, you know, hoping that he's still got it because he's been, you know, training at Real Madrid is not as good as playing at Real Madrid.
Hell no.
And especially when you are out of favor with the coach, you're not putting your all into training. Dude, you can kick rocks. You know, you're not gonna cause me to get injured when I don't need to. And you know, I'm happy you mentioned Mesut Ozil because he's interesting. I saw a stat the other day that was completely fascinating, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I do believe Mesut Ozil holds the World Cup record for passing completion percentage in a World Cup, upwards of like 80%.
Wow. Is that from 2014?
Their World Cup run.
Yeah.
He's and that's another weird situation where, according to him, he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
The manager doesn't say, like, it's just weird stuff that you just can't even put him in the window. You can't even put him out there in the window.
Yeah.
Like what we would call trade bait, so to speak. You can't even put him out there and just say, "Hey, why don't you take a look at him real quick?"
Loan him out. They won't even loan him out. So they're essentially, you know, they're doing the same thing Real. They're eating their wages for nothing.
For nothing.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. I don't know, man.
We'll have to get into that because I think that speaks to the tricky nature of transfers and loans and contracts. But those two situations are just weird.
Indeed.
Just weird stuff.
So we're going to get some closing thoughts now. We're going to go around the horn, kick it in the diamond. We'll go with Zach, Big Shot, Germ, and then we'll close out the show. Zach, closing thoughts on anything that comes to mind, brother.
Man, I'm happy to bring a new sport to scene. I'm happy to possibly, even if it's one or two of y'all that are more intrigued about the game of soccer. Mm-hmm. It truly is the most beautiful game. And I know a lot of people think it's boring. There's not a lot of action. If you can see beyond the highlights and you can see and you like to see things for what they are and see the beauty behind things, I'm telling you, I think you'll be really surprised with what soccer has to offer. So I hope that you guys, ask questions. Don't feel like something that you say will be stupid or will criticize you for it, because that's one thing that I love about Scene is that we're all so open-minded that it doesn't matter where your mindset is, where your knowledge level is at. We're willing to help educate people. And I'm thankful that I'm a part of a group of folks that are the same and like-minded, and I'm happy to help in any way.
And and to Zach, asking questions, you should ask questions.
Hell yeah.
Because if you, obviously us as Americans, I'm telling you, European football works so much different than what our sports culture works. It's not even the same thing. So questions you absolutely should ask them, because there are some things that you just, if you're not in it, you wouldn't understand, because it just works that different. But yeah, we're definitely looking forward to having more shows. Germ, you got homework. It's on the way. Here in a couple of minutes, I'm gonna give you some stuff to look at. YouTube is your friend.
Yeah.
With football, because football on YouTube, not just like highlight tapes, but just personalities and commentators, is you'll like it. So definitely though. But we look forward to having y'all. I think it's gonna be fun. Once we kind of get into it, I think I'm not saying we're gonna convert some people, but we're gonna have a couple people watching.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna have some people who I think we're gonna get to take a look at it.
Yes.
Yo.
Yes. Gernaldo, closing thoughts, brother.
Hey man, I'm here for this. This is, I'm sitting here like listening to you guys talk about the sport. First of all, any sport that has intricate details, like you guys are talking about, with people playing together, combinations of players and things of that nature, like I'm into that whole thing, So I'm here for it. Don't worry, I'm just gonna bother everybody, and y'all gonna teach me the game. Like it's just gonna be like that. I'm like, hey, so what's the name of this player right here? I'm gonna be asking you all types of stuff. So I mean, this is what the culture is here for.
Exactly.
Like I want everybody to ask questions, because, hey man, all sports are not, there's nothing wrong with soccer. I don't understand why you think, how's this boring? When I was a kid, I used to love to try to hit them with the little behind the back leg. I used to try to hit all types of moves. I don't understand how y'all don't like this. I don't understand.
And I think, and it's crazy. I think this will make kind of an interesting show topic for another day, is like kind of what drew you to it. Because it only takes like one thing to get you into it. And then once you into it, you just go from there. So that might be like just a show topic. Why? What made you like this? And I guarantee you, for most people, it's something just small.
Mm-hmm.
That just that one little thing that got you into it,
mm-hmm.
and then now you're here.
I actually got a great story as to how I got into soccer. So we'll leave that for the show. We'll leave that for a teaser for the time we do that show.
Absolutely.
But just to tie in everything everybody said, listen, again, as Scene, I think what you see with Scene is the culture was set, the standard was set with 94 Feet of Life and Views from the 22. And all these other groups have grown and stemmed and been created from the culture that we've all helped to establish in those two main groups. And we want questions. We're a lab culture. It's the culture within the culture. We want questions. We want to educate. There are no dumb questions. There are no dumb ideas. And I think the beautiful thing about soccer is, as much as it is just razzle dazzle style, when you're watching the game, especially if you're a lab guy, and I want to talk mainly about hockey, basketball, and football, especially if you're a lab guy of any of those three sports, there are times when you could see, for example, the triangle offense at play with Phil Jackson, where guys just move, three guys here, there, and they start just moving around each other through players. There are times in the attacks when you see the defenders, when they're trying to defend the attack, essentially what happens is you get A gap, B gap, C gap. there's so many intricate details to soccer that you could reference other sports that we love and grow up on to sort of give it that comparison and help you relate to it. And then, like we said, it's the beautiful game. It's a sophisticated game, but the business side of it is very dark. We appreciate you tuning in. We will have way more on all these subjects, way more details, way more great shows. I'm excited. Scene has me so excited. Sometimes I can't sleep. So shout out to Stoppage Time FC and Zach Westrid, the group owner of that. Shout out to 94 Feet of Life, represented by Big Shot. Shout out to Views from the 22, represented by myself and Germ So True. Shout out to Petty in the outfield, represented by their starting pitcher right there as well, Germ So True. We appreciate y'all for tuning in. Catch us daily. We are coming at you with daily shows on this channel: soccer, football, basketball, you name it. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you get those notifications. We'll catch y'all another day.